You're listening to Grown and Growing with Sonia Hamlin. What's up, everybody? Thank you for joining me for another episode. I am glad you're here because we're talking about a topic that I've been a little nervous about broaching. This week, we're talking about motherhood. And I've been nervous about this topic because there is so much judgment, opinions, thoughts about how to be a good mom, what it takes to be a good mom and to raise great human beings. But I decided that it was time, mostly because I looked at the calendar and realized that it was Mother's Day on Sunday. So what better way to kick off Mother's Day week? Yes, I think mothers deserve a week. What better way to kick off Mother's Day week than to talk about raising humans? I feel like this will be the first of many topics about motherhood because there's so much to discuss. So consider this an introductory conversation into motherhood. So I became a mom in 2010 when I had a baby boy. And 20 months later, I had my daughter. Yes, my kids are 20 months apart, and I had 2 kids under the age of 2. So that meant I had 2 kids in diapers at the same time. That was very expensive. Neither one of them were walking at the time, so that was hard. My son actually didn't start walking until he was 18 months, but he could talk very early on. So he was fully capable of having a conversation with you, but he couldn't walk over to you at all. And my daughter was the opposite. She resisted talking for a long time, but she walked early. I had 2 under 2, and luckily I had stopped breastfeeding my son because I'm not sure I would have survived breastfeeding 2 at the same time. So kudos to moms with multiple kids. Twins and such. I think back to going back to my job after having 2 kids. I was blessed to have 12 weeks of maternity leave with each kid. And I think back to, how I was mentally during that time. And I could say it took me a good year or so to come out of the fog of having 2 little kids. Professionally, I was not all there. I don't know how I survived. When I went back to work, I was so tired. My kids did not sleep through the night. They slept through the night at different points in time. But for the most part, we were up, late with them or up early with them, with one of them. And it was an adjustment. I don't know what I did during that time. I don't know what kind of work I was turning in. I don't know what kind of conversations I've had. And it's probably for my own protection because it was probably some trash. I was probably a hot mess at that time. And the universe was being kind to me by having me forget. Let's get into the nitty-gritty of raising humans. And yes, I call child rearing raising humans because it reminds me that I am raising complex, complicated, emotional beings who are one of one. And there's only one individual like them in the world. And when I'm having a hard day, I'll talk to my husband and say, oh my God, raising humans is so hard. And it is. It's a reminder that I am not raising a little Sonia or a little Derek. I am raising 2 individuals who will eventually grow up, leave my home, and chart their own path. I want to give all of the mothers out there their flowers today. I want to hold them up in the light, hold them in appreciation, and just say thank you, and I see you, and I am you. And that's for any mother, anybody who's considered a mother, whether it's biological, whether you are a bonus mom, whether you're an auntie or a grandmother who has stepped in to be a mom, to godmothers. No matter what your journey has been to motherhood, I want you to know that you are appreciated and all of the work that you do does not go unnoticed. it is so important to this world. Let's talk about what makes being a mom's an amazing experience. And I'm sure it is different for every person, especially if you got years on me. Like, I'm here to remind you that I only have 12 years of being a mom. So what my favorite amazing experiences look like are going to be different than a mom who has been a mom for 40 years. So, but for me, it is the process of seeing this being that you've created grow and experience the world for the first time. There are so many things that you get to rediscover and enjoy yourself through the eyes of your child. I just remember watching Barney. My son was a huge Barney fan, and me and Barney were tight. We weren't as tight as Barney and my son, but we were tight. We knew all the songs. We bought all the CDs. Barney was a staple in my house, and I didn't get to have a Barney. My Barney was Sesame Street. To see him react to that and know all the songs and us having that thing that we got to explore and enjoy together was awesome to me. There is so much wonder and amazement that they have that you end up looking at the world and seeing things with new eyes. It's really incredible that way. And as a new mom, and I still consider myself a new mom because it's funny, I've worked on my job longer than I've been a mom. There's so much to learn. But so far, my absolute favorite age has been the early toddler stage, from like ages 2 to 5. I know, I get it. This may change as my kids grow, but for now, this is my choice. At this age, I love seeing their personalities develop. I love the genuine innocence that they have when they are talking to you. Even though they have so many questions, I love answering their questions. I love to see how they ask their questions so I can see how their mind thinks. They still look at you like you're the best thing since sliced bread. And so they have these short memories and all of this love. So their memories are short and their love is long. They still smell good for the most part, and they're just like easily cuddled. I think about trying to cuddle my kids today, and there's just a lot of arms and legs involved. It's very pointy. And sometimes, actually most times, because they have come from outside or come from school, they're a little ripe. They're a little sweaty or musty, smelling like outside. So it's not exactly the same as cuddling a 2-year-old or a 5-year-old. So that is what I most enjoy about raising kids. And even my kids at the age they are now, they're 10 and 12. Having real conversations with them is awesome. I love talking to them. I love when they teach me something that I didn't know. There's so many things that I enjoy about being Hunter and Sienna's mom. It's amazing. But let's not get it twisted, okay? Raising humans is hard AF, as the kids say. The hardest part of raising kids starts, I think, when the outside world begins to seep in more, right? And when that happens, your kids start to change, as it would anyone, right? When you get exposure to the outside world, you change. Your perception changes. You may get more jaded, or you may be more enlightened. You just, it just does. It changes who you are as an individual. And so your protection of their mind, their feelings, and their physical being becomes so much harder. The fight to preserve their innocence that they have becomes almost impossible. And it does. At a certain age, you have to let go of that idea of innocence, unfortunately. At least to some extent. They have the potential to be exposed to so much just from TV or YouTube, their friends, their cousins. Cousins teach a lot too. At school, at church. Look, nowhere is safe if there are other humans around who are also being raised, right? Because you don't know what they've been taught, or you don't know what their parents allowed them to watch. And that may be different. And so, as they grow up and they are exposed to different people, they're going to be exposed to the world and things that you'd rather them not be. It's just a part of being a parent. And if just limiting their exposure or keeping them 100% sheltered, so you think, is your only tool, then it's going to fail somewhere down the line. At some point, you have to make the adjustment from protecting them from the world to kind of allowing them to learn at their own pace about what the world is all about. Because if you don't teach them, the world is going to teach them. And I much rather that learning come from me than come from their little dumb friends or the internet. I want to clarify that when I say teach your kids about the world, I'm not saying do that before they're ready. I'm not saying do that in a way that's inappropriate. I'm talking about having age-appropriate conversations for things that they may see at their age. And, you'd be surprised what they are exposed to from a very early age. Now, having said that, I do want to teach my kids about various things that they'll experience when they're growing up, but I'm not one of those parents who will smoke and let their kids drink in their home because I feel like that's safer. And I feel like if they're going to do it, they might as well do it under my roof. I'm not one of those parents, but I do believe in having real conversations with them, as hard as that may be for me, or as uncomfortable as that may make me. As my kids grew, I saw a shift in myself from being constantly physically tired, right? From having, an infant or a toddler depend on you 100%. You just have this level of being constantly exhausted from that. And then you kind of shift from being physically exhausted to having a mental and a spiritual exhaustion because they are exposed to more of the world. You spend a lot more time thinking about how you're going to teach them, what you're going to teach them, what they are exposed to. And you shift from being their single protector to taking more time to pour into them so that they can protect their own mental, physical, and spiritual space. And so, you never quite give that up as a parent. You're still their ultimate protector, no matter what age they're at. But there comes a time when you have to prepare them to do it on their own, appropriate for the age that they are. And I have felt the weight of this responsibility since before my kids were born. I've always worried about how I was going to teach them to navigate a very complicated and unforgiving world. I mean, when I had kids, I wasn't sure I was able to navigate a complicated and unforgiving world. I was still figuring it out. And now I had to go and teach these kids how to do the same thing. And it was important to me that I just not want my kids to focus on achievements and being book smart. I wanted them to have common sense. I wanted them to be street smart, which my husband would be great at teaching them. I wanted them to be able to think critically and be kind and have confidence and integrity and creativity. I mean, the lessons go on and on. I have been thinking about this since before I have delivered them into this world. And, it's kind of a pressure that you feel, at least I do as a parent. And I have this story that is both funny and crazy all at the same time because of how it talks to the pressure I kind of felt as a mom. So one time I took my son to this place called the Main Event in the mall, which is like a Dave and Buster in the mall. And I'm not sure if it was a party or we were just meeting people there, but he saw someone who played on his football team. And it wasn't a close friend. It was someone we knew, but we didn't know very well. At least I didn't. And my son didn't either, because we would have his friends. I would hear about his friends a lot, and I didn't hear about this person. And so they played and ran around and played the games. And Hunter ended up winning a game where he won thousands and thousands of points, like 20,000 points or something ridiculous like that. A lot more than the 3,000 or 2,000 that you win when you're there. And, he came to me. He was like maybe 8 or 9 years old. Maybe he was 10. I'm not sure. And he said, okay, I won all these points and I want to share them with these two kids that I play football with. And I'm like, okay, that's fine. There's enough points. You can share them. But as the kids went into the store and they started picking things, Hunter was picking, things that he liked, and they happened to be low points. And these other kids were picking big things that they liked that cost a lot of points. And, the things that Hunter were picking, their points ended up being much smaller than what the other two kids were picking. And I pulled them aside and I said, hey, I want you to share, but I want to make sure that you are comfortable sharing these many points with these kids. You do not know them that well. It seems like, they're hanging around because they want something, and you don't have to spend this many points on them. You don't have to give them this many points. I was trying to teach him, that he had the right to say no. And he was like, no, that's fine. It's fine. And I'm like, are you sure? And I was purposeful about not trying to make the decision for him, but, lead him and guide him to make the right decision. He didn't. He didn't do what I wanted him to do. And, I let these kids get the toys or whatever, because honestly, I didn't really want a bunch of toys at my house anyway. But I let these kids get the toys that they had asked for. I think I made them put a couple of things back because it was a little ridiculous. And I knew they would. They ran off without saying goodbye, without saying thank you. They were nowhere to be seen. And, I pulled Hunter aside and I said, hey, you see, they just ran off and they didn't say thank you. And they didn't seem to appreciate that you had done this thing for them. And so, that should tell you that maybe they aren't your real friends and they only wanted the things from you. And now that they got them, they're nowhere to be found. And he was like, okay, I got it. But I didn't know if he did. And I felt very emotional about this conversation I had with my son, to the point where he fell asleep in the car on our way home. And I called my husband and I was crying, telling him about my failure as a mom. I was like, I failed, and I'm getting emotional now just thinking about it. I failed because I tried to get him to do this thing and see, get the lesson and see it, and he still chose the wrong thing. And, I'm going to be a failure and he's going to be a pushover and he's going to let people take things from him. And how are we going to prevent this? I mean, I was literally going off and crying because I just felt like I have failure as a mom. And Derek was so great because, normally he's just like, look, you're being ridiculous. Get over it. But he was very kind and gentle and was like, look, he will get the lesson. This is just one time, right? This is one time you had the opportunity to teach him this lesson. You'll have many more opportunities to teach him about protecting himself. He was like, you didn't have to do it all in this one, on this one day. And he was like, your responsibility now is to protect him when he can't. He's only 8, 9 or 10, whatever. And it is your job to protect him when he can't. You should have said no to those boys and made them get one thing, and that should have been it. And you should have made the decision for him because that is your role right now. He doesn't have to get all the lessons now, Sonia. And that, first of all, it made me feel so much better, right? I didn't feel like a failure. And I was so glad that, to know that I didn't have to put that pressure on myself or on him to make grown-up decisions, because I was the grown-up. I was supposed to be making the decision, not him. And so it was such a lesson for me, and that sticks with me so much because it just taught me that, it's going to take more than one time. These are lessons that you have to keep repeating over and over and over again. And then it also taught me to chill the fuck out. Just chill, Sadia. It's not it's okay. It was just one thing. And so I just wanted to share that with you too, because, this pressure we put on ourselves as moms is real. It's real. I want them to prepare them for life, but it's going to take some time. It's going to take multiple times throughout their lives, even as an adult, to make sure that they get the lesson. And as much as I try to make them get the lesson, they may not get it until they experience something in their life that forces them to get it. And what I hope is that the seed that I planted long ago will start to sprout in that moment. It's much like marketing, right? You do all this marketing, and with the hope that when that person is ready to make a decision about buying something, that they think of you first. So the marketing isn't necessarily always designed for the person to go out and buy that thing right now. It is to plant the seed for when they're ready, you can be within their consideration set. And that is what I hope my kids, happens with my kids, that I plant seeds in them, that some of them will sprout now and some of them will sprout later. Anyway, preparing them for life means, having hard conversations. Hard, y'all. Conversations that I don't really like about puberty. And I actually find it easier for my daughter, for obvious reasons, harder with my son for obvious reasons. But we need to have these real age appropriate conversations about sex and their bodies and drugs and alcohol and, online behavior, which is a new element, right? That my mom didn't have to do. Discernment, being a good friend, being street smart, all of these things. And just, preparing and equipping your kids to go out in this world, which is a trash world, by the way. And I know every generation says that about the world that their child is growing up into. I'm sure my mom said it about my world and her mom said it about her. But I really do feel like this is the worst yet, because they did not have to deal with a digital existence. They didn't have to deal with YouTube and TikTok. And so I feel like we win. But I really think preparing and equipping your kids to go out into this world is the most difficult part of parenting. And I don't even think I'm in their most formative years yet. I think that's high school? I'm not really sure. So I have so much admiration for parents who have raised their children to be okay in adulthood. Like, if you've gotten your kid successfully past the finish line into being adults, kudos to you. I'm looking at you like you are awesome. You are great, because that is what I aspire to be. Have my kids cross the finish line into adulthood and be productive citizens of this world. And I have, what I think is, I'm not sure if it's empathy or something else, for parents who did their best and tried their hardest, and their kids still made some not so great choices, either as kids or adults. They made some not so good choices. And my heart goes out to them, because being a parent, is very difficult. This next point, I won't dwell on too much, but I think it's important to continue to work on yourself throughout raising your kids. If not just for checking in to make sure you're still sane, but the better you become at being better yourself, the better your parenting will be, I think. Like, I think I'm a much better parent than I am now than I was back when they were younger. And it's because I continue to work on myself in various ways. I feel like if you work on unburdening yourself from your own baggage, you'll pass on less baggage to your kids. Now, they'll have their own baggage and have to seek their own therapy, but, hopefully, some of that, less of that will be your own baggage coming through them. And maybe it's not something you focused on or saw value in before you were a parent. Like, I didn't go to therapy thinking about, I'm having these kids and how could I raise them best? And let me work on myself so I could be the best parent ever. No, I didn't. But it's never too late. Even if your kids are adults, it is never too late to work on yourself so that you have a better relationship with your kids. It doesn't matter how old they are. And then there's this process of having to let your kids go into the world and having let go to make their own decisions, make their own mistakes. And you have to sit back and watch them do that, right? With guarded advice, right? I've watched my sister do this with her kids. She's recently had to let them go and make their mistakes. And it's been interesting to watch. And I've learned a lot from her experiences, whether she knows it or not. I do know that she loves her kids so much and she wants them to be successful. But I think she realizes that she can't do it for them. And it is best if she lets go. And it has been very eye-opening for me to watch her go through that process. Thinking about them being out on their own as adults is enough to keep me in therapy for the next 30 years, I promise. And for folks who are listening to this with adult kids, just send the rest of us who are still working on raising our kids some positive vibes, right? We still out here trying, and we would appreciate your positive vibes when you can. So the next thing I want to move on to is talking about your relationships with your mom. And I'm actually not going to get into the thick of this because it probably deserves its own episode unto itself. Relationships with your parents when you're an adult is very different than having them raise you. But there's this one thing that I want to just check on with you guys. It is people I see on Instagram that it's mostly celebrities, honestly, who call their kids who are still adolescent or younger their best friends. And am I the only one who finds that weird? Why are you calling your 14-year-old, your 10-year-old, your 5-year-old your best friend? I don't know if I have a different definition for best friend, but my kids are not my best friends. They are not. They don't have no money. They always asking for stuff. What kind of friend is this? But no, I just find that weird. Do you guys find that weird? Anyway, I don't even consider my mom my best friend, and I'm 44. And she, we definitely have a more adult mother and daughter relationship, but I don't see her as my best friend. I see her as my mom, who I can talk about more things with. I still go to her when I am sad, when I need to be built up, when I need to be prayed over. That is who I go to. And I don't know. I don't consider that a friend. I consider that my mom. And to me, that is the most important thing to me than her being a friend to me. But speaking of my mom, to represent this, mother-daughter relationship or having a relationship with your mom, I wanted to have my mom on the podcast to talk about what it's like to raise me and my two sisters. So she has 3 girls in their 40s, and I wanted to talk to her and ask her questions that I've never quite asked in one setting before. So we're going to see how this goes. So listen up as I talk to my mom on the podcast. Well, I am excited to have a very special guest, probably the most special guest I've had on the show thus far. My mom, Linda Cotton, is joining me. I'm doing, as you know, I'm doing a special episode because it's Mother's Day week. And since I only have 12 years of experience being a mom, I decided to talk to somebody who has raised three girls well into their 40s. So she has 40 years of experience, over 40 years of experience raising children. So I wanted to talk to my own mom about what it was like to raise me and my two sisters, and find out a little bit more about what that experience was like for her. So before I started this episode, I talked about my, little experience in raising my kids now, who are 10 and 12. And I talked about a little bit about, how I have begun to see my mom, not as just my mother, existing on this earth just to be my mother, but as a full human being with real feelings and real experiences and her own life outside of me. So thank you for joining me, Mom.
Thank you for having me, babe. What?
So I'm just going to start out with the questions, and you can answer them, and we'll go from there. Okay.
Sure.
All right. So my first question to you, Mom, is what do you like most about being a mother?
Well, I like the fact that the most important thing that I love is being a grandmother. Thank you for making me a grandmother.
Okay. That has nothing to do with being a mom. No, I'm just kidding. No, it has everything to do.
It has everything to do with being a mom. and I really love the way you guys interact with your children. It's interesting to sit back and see you do that, because I'm comparing how I did it as opposed to what you're doing now. So, but mostly grandchildren.
Is it weird to see your kids as mothers?
No, not weird. I wouldn't say weird. I was thinking a lot about these questions that you gave me, and it's emotional for me, because I mean, you're my family, you're my legacy. It's really, it makes me very proud to see you in your roles as a mom, because you guys, when you became parents, were a lot older than I was when I became a mom. Mm-hmm. And so it's really, it's not weird. It's just very nice. I can't. It's really nice.
Okay. So you alluded that you were a very young mom, and you were. I think you had all of us before you were 25, right?
Well, I had Leah when I was 26.
Okay.
I had Shay when I was 19. You came at 22, and Leah came at 26.
Okay. So when I think back to where I was at 19, 22, and 26, I was nowhere near ready for a kid. And I always think about that, how, it's so funny how God made us super fertile and gave us the ability to have multiple kids when we're so young. Mm-hmm. But then when we're older and we're ready to have kids and we have the mindset for it, it's harder to have kids. So I always find that interesting. But you were a young mom with three girls. You were eventually, married to my dad. But what got you through? I know, just from growing up that there were a lot of hard times. What got you through those hard times? How did you get through them?
A lot of prayer, a lot of, just a lot of prayer. There wasn't a whole lot. And I think a good place to start with leading into this question that you just asked me is, I was one of 14 children. I had 13 siblings. I had 8 sisters and 5 brothers. And we all grew up in the household together. And when I think back on that time, I always, being the middle child in that family, 6 older than me and 6 under me, I felt invisible, basically. Just invisible and not supported, and not validated. And so all I thought about was, oh, I just want my own children. I want my own family. I want my own baby. I want to give them everything that I didn't get. So a lot of time when I raised you guys at such a young age, I wanted to instill all those things that I was lacking when I was growing up into you guys. And so that's what I did. I tried to I had tunnel vision. I was really young too. And I just went in there to just make sure that you knew that I love you, that you knew that I supported you. I didn't think about anything else like money or anything like that. I wanted to have a family that love me unconditionally and that I can love them. And that's where it came about. I was never ready.
You said what, Mom?
I never, it's not whether I think that I was ready or not. I think it was something that God blessed me with when he gave me, Shay Shay at such a young age, because he knew that I was ready for her.
That's good. And that, it's interesting. We always talk about how we've come from a big family, and that has so many dynamics to it. But, in a lot of ways that really factored heavily into the way that you raised us. And, I've, just listening to you, I'm like, wow, that's really interesting. I'm a middle child, you're a middle child, but very different experiences, because I didn't feel like I was, not validated or not seen, because obviously there were only 3 of us. And so I always felt like you treated us like the individuals that we were. I did feel very much like a middle child, but it didn't have anything to do with the way you raised us. I just think it was just trying to find my own way when you have an older sister and a younger sister, and they both have very distinctive roles in the family. One as a baby, and then as the baby of the family, and then one, as the oldest, who is setting the path. And then there's a kind of like me in the middle. And even though I didn't have voice to that when I was younger, I do look back on my life and was like, I was definitely a middle child, had middle child tendencies for sure. So when we were younger, you talked about, making sure you raised us in a way that was kind of the opposite of what you got out of your familial relationships when you were younger. So what was the most important lesson that you wanted to teach us? You taught us a lot of things, but in your mind, what was the most important thing that you wanted to instill in us?
I wanted you guys to love each other. I wanted you to be supportive of each other. I wanted you to be sisters. That was just my greatest wish and what I worked so hard for. And I don't know if you remember, but I wouldn't allow you guys to fight each other, hit each other, call each other out of your names. Do you remember that? I would say, don't call your sisters' names, or never.
Yes, they did.
But I know you did. I know you did, but you didn't do it you didn't do it in my presence, because that was really important to me, because family is everything. I just wanted you guys to be buddies, and I wanted you to be close. And, I wanted that so much for myself that I poured everything into you guys. And sometimes I was tell people, I was like, oh my God, because I was afraid to leave Leah at one time, because I thought that you guys would kill her. So I would have to take her everywhere that I went. So imagine I was talking to one of the ladies that I worked with when you were born, and I said, her name was Mrs. Graham, I'll never forget it. And I said, are they ever going to grow up and love each other? She was like, yeah, just keep doing what you're doing. I was like, because I don't know. Mm-hmm. So that was my biggest thing, is I wanted you guys to be close, really close.
I do remember that growing up, that you wanted us to be close. And I guess at the time I felt like it was annoying, but it was like, okay, you want us to be close, but they're mean. Or, we weren't getting along because we were kids and we were in the same household, and that's just the way it is. That's just the way it was. But now that we're adults, I do think that back to, you know, all of the work that you did to instill that in us, because we are very close now. I probably talk to them more than I talk to anybody, a few times a day, thanks to FaceTime. We talk, even though I live apart from them. I don't feel like I'm ever kind of left out. Well, sometimes I do, but that's just because of distance, not because of emotional distance. But we talk, and I really credit you with us for making it a priority that we be close. And I think because I don't want to say manifested that, but instilled that in us early, I think it kind of came to fruition kind of later on in our lives, as we were all, you know, in these, you know, pivotal stages. And we were all, I think when we were all adults and we can all kind of understand each other and understand where each person was in their life, it enabled us to be closer. And we are close, very close now. So good job, Mom. That worked. That worked. And what was the biggest lesson you got out of raising 3 girls?
Well, in my really, I like to call my family the big crazy family. I have a big crazy family. That's how I describe my family to others. It's not a negative thing, but it's just the way it is. Yes. And I would go what I wanted to make sure that you knew, that you felt, and I knew you weren't going to, you know, I was very wise, come to think of it. I knew you guys would not understand anything about motherhood until you had a child of your own.
Mm-hmm. And I used to say that
all the time. And I used, and my siblings would come and they would say, oh, you know, Shay Shay's your favorite, and you know, she's your favorite. And I thought about how you guys would feel, but I think I used to say it, and especially to Leah a lot. I was like, it's not that you are all my favorites, but you are all different. You have your own individual personalities. So I can't treat you like you're ghetto twins, because you're not. When I was growing up, I was a ghetto triplet. A ghetto triplet. I was like, because we didn't have any individuality. We weren't allowed to wear what we wanted. We weren't allowed to do anything. And we were like cookie cutters. I always call them ghetto triplets, because it's funny. If one got an outfit, we all got the same outfit. If one got a pair of shoes, we all got the same pair of shoes, and we were like different as night and day. Right. And so I was like, when I grow up, you know, when I grow up, I'm never going to let my children wear the same stuff. I'm just, because there
was a lot of y'all. I mean, to be fair,
it was, and you know what, and it was, and that's true. But when you're in a house, you'll never know what that feels like.
Right.
And because it was so many of us, and I think back now that I'm older, and I was like, wow, I don't know how my mom dealt with all of those different personalities. Right. And so as you get older, you start looking at, as you said it in the introduction, you start looking at me as a person and not just your mom. Mm-hmm. I mean, I'm a person. I tunneled in to you guys and start instilling things in you that I was lacking, and I don't know how I did, through the grace of God. Yes, I do. I don't know how I did it, because we didn't have any money. We never had any money. I wanted to go to school. I really wanted to go to school. My mom said no. I got out of school. I was a straight A student, always trying to overachieve so that I can be noticed. Hey, I'm over here. But being right in the middle, everybody had their needs. And so it was, you know, somebody's got to bear the brunt of that. So right. I always say to you, Sonia, I see you. I see you. You're a middle child. I see you. Right. I got my eye on you, because I know what that feels like. Mm-hmm. And even though it's not as big as my family was, it's the same thing. So right. I wanted to make sure that you knew that I saw you and that I was paying attention. Mm-hmm. And I'm here.
I felt that.
So I wonder about that, though. I wonder, and that's why I like listening to your podcast, because it's like I'm seeing your truth. Mm-hmm. and where you were and what you got out of my raising you, because sometimes I wonder about that. But
Mhm.
I think that with love and support, the sky is the limit. If you have that, you don't have anything else, but the sky is the limit. If you have.
Absolutely. No, you did good. You did great with noticing me. I mean, I think you knew that I was different from Shay Shay, who is the oldest, and Leah, who is the youngest. And in a lot of ways, I feel like my personality is a blend of, I'm like in the middle of the two of them. You know, and it's so funny because they're both Capricorns. I'm an Aquarius. Not that I know what that means really, but it just shows like, you know, we're just very different, different kids. And even Shay Shay and Leah are different. They're not, I mean, just because they share the same zodiac sign doesn't mean they're the same, but they have their own, you know, quirks about them. But I remember going to and having like, we didn't do it a lot, but I do remember having a middle girls day where we just went out and did stuff as middle children, because you told me you were the middle child too. I was a middle child too. And so we would go and do something. I don't remember what we did, but the fact that you did it stands out to me. So one of the things that I wanted to talk to you about was, you know, anybody who knows you, if you grew up in Cleveland and they knew you, the first thing that they would say about you is that you had 3 girls. Like even from the outside looking in, we were so much a part of your personality and what people saw in you. They probably saw us first before they saw you. And, you know, even though I'm gone, everybody knows about your girls and you know, and how important we are to you. You know, when you look back on that, how does that make you feel that so much of your identity is, or at least when we were growing up, and even probably still now a little bit, a lot of your identity was tied up in raising us?
Well, I think I always say that you guys saved me. You saved me when I was bringing you up, because you were everything to me. I didn't think about anything else. I don't care if you needed anything. I was going to scrape my knees and go out there and get it, because you guys were everything to me, and still is today. You're just everything to me. I was just so thankful that God gave me 3 girls, because I was like, Lord, I don't want any boys. I was raised up with brothers. I was like, I don't want to deal with that. I just, you know, and God blessed me with you guys. And when I had you, I was so young. So a lot of things that you experienced when we were growing up, I was experiencing for the first time myself. So it was like me pouring into you healed my inner child. So everything that I did for you, and then now that I sit back,
oh, don't cry. We was gonna get through this without crying.
now that I see you guys in action, and I kind of sit back on the sidelines. I'm sorry. Hold on. Please excuse me.
Okay. That's okay.
So now that you're older and I sit back and I look at you, I mean, my heart is so full, because everything that I prayed for, I see it now. I see it now, and I just feel so blessed. And you guys are so beautiful, and you're my everything.
Oh, that's good, because you know, sometimes I wonder when you don't, because you never really got to experience your 20s or your 30s, just being kid free and exploring life like we, you know, all got to in our own ways. You know, I wonder, you know, how that affects you now, and the choices you make in your life now that you have raised us, you know, and, you know, how do you go about living your life outside of us now?
Oh my God. I am so happy with my life right now. I always say my 60s was those were my happiest times. Like now, and I kind of laughed when you did the first podcast and you said, well, Mom didn't tell us about finances. And I just got such a kick out of that. I was like, wasn't anything to teach you about? Was no money. So But now that you guys are grown and I sit back, it's like when you were born, God gave me I had a blank canvas and God said, create your masterpiece, and that will be you guys. And so now that you're all grown up and you have your own children and you're doing so well. And I sit back and I was like, wow, I did that. Thank you, Lord. That's my masterpiece. So now I can go travel and I don't have to worry about you because you guys have wonderful husbands. I have wonderful son-in-law, and I can just sit back and enjoy my life. I am truly, truly in enjoying my life, and I regret nothing. I regret nothing, nothing at all.
It's interesting because that's part of I'm in the stage of raising my kids so that they can go off into the world and I can be comfortable in the decisions that they make, that they'll be productive human beings. That's probably one of the things that makes me the most nervous about being a mother, and is how do I prepare them for the world that I know and the world that I don't know, right? Because the world will be completely different when they're adults. And that's one thing that keeps me up at night. Like, I want them to be smart and I want them to achieve, but I also want them to be more so to make good decisions, have common sense, be good people. And, that's something that keeps me up, and it makes me feel good to know that, seeing you enjoy your life and being and trusting that we got it makes me feel okay. Like, okay, I can do this. I can do this. So, all right,
you're doing it, Sonia. And I just want to say one more thing about that. I had anxiety when you guys were younger. I used to, because my mom used to say, "Oh, you and those girls, you do everything for those girls." I had you guys I was like a trailblazer in my family. I was the first one to go to college because I wanted to. I was the first one to have children and without being married because I wanted to. And I always constantly, people ask me now, well, you always say, well, give it to the Lord. Well, I'm comfortable with the Lord. He has been with me day one. And I used to say, oh, my kids are not going to like me, and I hope they don't like me. And I said, well, then I got to the point where I don't care if they like me or not. They're going to know that I love them. All I can do is my best. So all you can do is your best. And if you set the foundation for them, they will blaze their own path. You can't stay up about stuff like that because that's unknown.
Right. I try not to, but there's a lot out here to worry about. Y'all ain't have to worry about the internet.
But yeah.
Y'all have to worry about Facebook and Instagram and TikTok. No.
Yes.
But okay, so this is a few lighter questions. So I always want to know, what kind of kid was I? In your opinion, I know how I saw myself as a kid, but how did you see me as a kid?
Well, okay, I saw you were very quiet. First of all, I thought you were very shy. I thought that you, and you like to read. You like to read and write, and you were always up in your room writing short stories and poems. And I'm like, oh, when is she going to go out on a date or something? 16, but I never pressured you about that. And so I don't know if you remember this. Miranda probably do. Remember when I let you and Randy go out? It was Thanksgiving. And you guys went somewhere and you came in late and we were still up, and I made you and Randy get in there because she didn't want to go home. So I let her stay over the night, but I made you wash all of the Thanksgiving dishes.
No, I don't remember that. Was I in college or was I in high school?
No, you were in high school.
Oh, I don't remember that.
I was glad that you guys went out. Well, what's that place y'all used to go to sneak in the boiler room or something?
Boiler room?
I don't know. Some kind of look. Pop club.
I have all the nightclub pictures somewhere.
But you were always like engrossed in books. And when I listened to your podcast, which I have never listened to a podcast as yours, I was like, yeah, she did love those books. You used to like to write really good short stories. Your spelling was a little bit, but once you start carrying your little dictionary in your purse, Because I guess you needed to get it out, and so you just got it out. But
I knew spelling wouldn't be important because there would be spell checks, so I could just write and be done with it.
but you were not. I never had to worry. I never had to. You never got any. You never did anything bad. Mm-hmm. Really, when I was thinking, I was like, dang. But
did you wish I would have?
Yes, in fact, not nothing that's bad that you would like go to jail or something like that, but just to let me know that you were developing socially and that you was, that you weren't like an introvert where you wouldn't want to go out and be around people. Cause I'm like Leah, I'm very sociable. I'm just out there. But I wanted to make sure that you were comfortable in being around others, because all you cared about was reading short stories and Miranda.
Yes. So, I mean, I was a child. I mean, I did do stuff, Mom. You just don't know about it. And now it doesn't matter because I'm 40. So
you're grown.
But no, I mean, that's pretty much, how I see myself. And actually those are parts of myself that I want to get back to. I mean, I did used to like to write, and I wanted to do short stories, and I wanted to be a writer when I was younger. Didn't do that, took a different path, but I'm trying to find my way back to the person, or to tap into that love that I used to have. But I did do things. I mean, I think that one of the greatest things that I didn't appreciate back in the day that you did was to take me out of a small Christian private school and put me in a big, huge public school from my high school days. I mean, it was very traumatic at the time, but it was probably for the best. Because it allowed me to be around more kids. I mean, I knew you said when you did it, you was like, because I want you to have a real prom. That's what I remember you saying.
And be around real people. Can I just interject on that? The reason I did it too, I was so wise now that I think of it. The reason I did it, and I don't know if you remember this either, but you were in you were in a Christian school, and it was just really, really small. And one day we were going somewhere, and it was a group of kids, like Black guys, standing around, and you just got really anxious and nervous.
Yes.
And I was like, what in the world? And that's why I decided you would go to the HBCU, and you would leave home and go and broaden yourself and just get out there in the world. And I was like, this is not going to work. She can't be afraid of her own people. Or, that was, and then there was
finance. I think it was more so that they were boys, not that they were Black.
I don't know what it was, but I know I didn't like it.
Mm-hmm. And so I went.
Sorry.
Well, I mean, it worked out because I did end up going to a HBCU. Mm-hmm. I am, the person that I am now because of it. And I wouldn't have made those decisions I wouldn't have made those decisions, I know for a fact, if I had stayed in a Christian school, in that small Christian school. So thank you.
And I thought you were old enough to handle it because you were a teenager then. And plus that was real expensive. There was no money. We keep that in mind.
Okay. So one of my last questions is, so what's your favorite quality of each daughter? So you have Sharon, who's the oldest, me in the middle, and then Leah, who's the youngest. What's your one favorite quality for each of us?
Shay is nurturing. Mm-hmm. She is so nurturing. She even nurtures me, and I'm the mom. Mm-hmm. You are a lot like me, direct, kind, but direct. Say what you whatever you're feeling, you just say it. Direct. Leah and me are the most alike. I always tell her this. The reason you and I butt heads are we are the same people. Leah is very passionate. She loves her people. Yes. She's all over the place, and she wants to please everybody. And she just is direct, and she's funny. Mm-hmm. And that's our, and she's the baby. She's our Leah.
She's the baby. Okay, great. I mean, you should have thrown in there that I'm also funny.
You are. I'm sorry. You have a very dry.
Apparently, that's not your favorite quality. No.
But you know what? That's true.
Correct.
Because as I'm listening to your podcast, I used to say you and Jeremy, your cousin Jeremy,
Yes.
You are hilarious, and your sense of humor is kind of dry because you can say something that's funny and not crack a smile, and everybody is cracking. Yes, Sonia's humor is what I love.
Thank you, Mother. All right, so this is my last question. We're gonna wrap it up.
Okay.
My last question is, obviously the podcast is called Grown and Growing, right? You are 67, or you will be 67 in May, right? Yeah, 67 in May. So how do you make sure you're still growing at 67?
Well, one thing, I'm open-minded. Mm-hmm. I'm very open-minded. I like to listen to your podcast because it makes me think about things that I normally wouldn't think about. And I just don't think that you're ever too old to learn from anybody. It doesn't matter how old they are. And I always keep myself open. Even today, I always do a check on myself to see how I'm doing, how I'm growing. What can I change to be better? What can I add to be better? So I'm always constantly doing those checks. And I'm open to learning. Nobody, you can never have too much. You can never know everything. You can always learn.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Mommy, for joining me. I'm sure everybody's going to get a kick out of getting to know you and getting to know why I am the way I am. So thank you for joining me. And to everybody else, I will see you next time.
Yeah, thank you for having me. Have a good day, babe.